title.
Does Santa know that you left the workshop?
You know, we're all laughing our heads off.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Do or do not. There is no try.
A lot of people probably don't think about this now, but there was a time when Game of Thrones was regarded as one of the best shows on television. And if it wasn't the best, it was certainly the most popular. It had a legion of fans that supported the show, obsessed over the show, came up with fan theories, bought their merchandise, and it was the fans who turned this show into a cultural phenomenon. And I happen to be one of those fans, and that is the very reason I'm wearing one of these ugly Christmas sweaters right now.
That makes sense.
Then came word that the show would be coming to an end in its 8th and final season. A lot of diehard fans were a little bit confused, considering the presumed amount of ground that they still had to cover. But for better or worse, we had faith in HBO, and we had faith in the show's creators, Benioff and Weiss. We had no reason to not trust that they were doing the right thing. But when that final season was released, anyone with half a brain could tell you something was off.
What the hell am I looking at?
Game of Thrones has always been about playing the long game and telling the story in the most natural way possible. And usually that story played out in a very slow-paced and methodical way. Long-term, well-thought-out storytelling was the name of the game for this show. But not in Season 8. Season 8 had the makeup of a show that was being forced to end before it was naturally ready to. The show rushed through major plot points and deaths like it was running late for Christmas dinner. The attention to detail that made this show so popular to begin with was absent for the most part in this final season.
This is whack! I can't get jiggy with this shit!
And justifiably, some of the fans weren't happy about it and voiced their displeasure. Fast forward 2 years, and that lackluster final season has been all but forgotten. That is until one of the stars of that show, Peter Dinklage, has come out and proclaimed that the fans are to blame for the negative reaction that this show received, and that all the people who were involved with producing it are completely absolved of any kind of wrongdoing.
Oh, you motherfuckers. Okay. All right.
Stop me if you've heard this before. The show couldn't possibly be below standards. The fans just have too high of standards. They always fall back on the idea that fans get upset when their theories don't pan out in the actual show. We've heard this kind of deflecting many times before. Peter claims that people were just upset because the show was ending at all. In reality, I think people would have welcomed an end to this show if it was a satisfying conclusion. But the team behind Game of Thrones, including Peter Dinklage, didn't produce that.
Fuck me, right?
Peter Dinklage then goes on to mock the notion that fans were concerned with who would get the throne at the end of the series. Yes, because it's not like the whole show has been building to that very idea. I don't know who's heard this story, but Benioff and Weiss actually had to guess who gets the throne at the end of the story in order for George Martin to give them the rights to create this show. It sounds like the author of the books that this show is based on felt like who gets the throne was pretty important.
No shit.
The biggest claim by Mr. Dinklage is that the backlash to the finale of Game of Thrones was because people, quote, wanted the pretty white people to ride off into the sunset together. Nothing like patronizing the people that made you a star, Peter. I'm sorry, but I think your criticism of the Game of Thrones fan base comes up a little bit short. And here's why. You say that the show ended when it was supposed to. I say that's bullshit.
You sit on a throne of lies.
George Martin wanted more seasons, HBO wanted more seasons, because they both knew that this story couldn't be wrapped up properly in such a short amount of time. And what do you know? They were right. Benioff and Weiss all but confirmed that they rushed through the final season of Game of Thrones so they could free themselves up to make a Star Wars trilogy of movies that never end up happening. That's what you get when you give up a great gig to go work for the human director firing machine that is Cray Cray KK.
You know, it's the standard, what would George do?
The final season of Game of Thrones just wasn't up to standards, and the fans were smart enough to realize it. And no amount of ridicule or mockery from a goddamn dwarf is going to change that. Sometimes it's hard for me to digest the arrogance of these fucking people who get rich and famous off of our support and then turn around and blame us when shit goes sideways.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Not on my watch. I can tolerate a lot of things, but some rich elitist asshole talking down to an entire fan base is not one of them. Fuck Peter Dinklage. Game of Thrones was very good at subverting expectations in its heyday. But in order for that to work, there has to be a proper setup and follow through. When you mail it in, subverting expectations becomes nothing more than shock value at best. And at worst, it actually manages to break the show. It manages to destroy the 7 seasons of work you put in to get to this point. And that, my friends, is what happened to Game of Thrones.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
Throughout those 7 seasons, the fans developed an emotional connection to the story and the characters. And they simply wanted an emotional payoff that made all of that time spent watching this show worth it in the end. And the creators of the show did not deliver that. Period. Blame the fans all you want, but I guarantee you wouldn't be in the position you're in now without those fans. So in the future, maybe it would be best to show a little bit more respect.
You can act like a man! What's the matter with you?
Some of these fans know more about this show than the people who are in it, and that's a fact. So you can take your condescending comments and shove them up your ass. This has been Joe from Real Shift. I talk shit, and I know things. Peter Dinklage, on the other hand, is now making a living out of talking out of his own ass. So let me know what you thought about all this in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.